This is a presentation of Smacking Off the Podcast. The voice of Carl Brutananadilevsky is generated at 15.ai.
Welcome, football fans, to another quality edition of Devine's Games of the Week.
Let's start with games we thought that could be interesting that have no relevance. Let's see. Minnesota at Wisconsin. That's one of the longest and oldest running rivalries in the Big Ten. They play for Paul Bunyan's Axe. Both teams have 3, if not maybe 4 losses. So that game we thought might be of some use when we put this list together in the summer before we knew anything. But no, didn't make the cut. Another one not making the cut.
Definitely some big rivalry games that's not so big this year.
Right. Another one, even though one of these two teams. And then not the team we thought that would be involved in sort of the conference title playoff race per se. LSU is at Texas A&M this weekend.
Yep.
And
Texas A&M can really put a big turd on this SEC championship sandwich.
They really could.
They really could.
My only will we see a few more folks in Aggieland versus this past weekend? I don't know if you saw that.
What happened? Nobody show up?
Literally, College Station, which seats over 101,000, looked like there was about 50 people there for their game against UMass.
Wow.
I mean, the images on the internet are spectacular of how they had some of these guys up in the upper deck in their respective sections were running relay races, through the empty upper bowl.
Right.
It was hilarious. There's literally nobody there.
What'd they score? 20 points?
Yeah, would they beat them like 20-10, 20-7?
20-3. I feel like it's 20-3, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So they put on a big show there for those 50 people, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, talking about snoozer, nobody's there. So hopefully they get a better turnout.
This LSU deal now, this is one of them deals that, what does A&M have, 4 wins?
They've won some. Are you talking this season or in the series?
Yeah, I think they've got 4 wins this season.
Yeah, I don't think a win would get A&M bowl eligible.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
So,
but what it would do would be make this team's year to knock off the West champs.
That's true.
It's just one of those. The A&M's, they've got the defense. They've got no offense.
Yeah, that's really. I mean, can they put up enough points to beat LSU? I don't
believe they can, but
I don't see it happening. I think, and all it'll take is the minute LSU gets up, say 10. A&M will, like they normally do, they'll fold their tent and quit. In fact, I think this one could get ugly, to be honest with you. I think LSU probably makes a statement in this one. But no, we had that one jotted down. We figured that'd be at least a battle of 2 top 15 teams.
Absolutely.
And A&M's definitely not ranked. LSU's got 2 losses. They're ranked for the moment until Georgia beats them in the SEC championship game, then they'll tumble. That one's out of it. Another one. This one, this one used to dominate the end of November in the 90s. Florida Gators at Florida State Seminoles. You remember how when Spurrier and Bowden were there, this was one of the games of the year.
Where's this game at, Sean?
It is at Doak in Tallahassee.
All right. So as far as the game goes, I mean, on paper it looks like Florida State wins the game, but man, Florida's all over the place.
Yeah. No, I think actually the game it's in and of itself, Florida State is 8-3, Florida's 6-5, so they're both bowl eligible.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to surprise me if Florida goes in and just handles business. It's not. They've got that kind of team, and they also have the kind of team to go there and just lay a big fat fucking egg.
Right. I mean, what Florida are we going to get? The Florida that beat what?
South Carolina last week.
South Carolina 38-6, beat them and then turn around and lose to Vanderbilt. Whereas Florida State is a little. You kind of know what you're getting with Florida State.
Yeah,
their losses
more consistent. Have beat some good teams this year. I mean, this should be their 9th win.
To me, Florida State's they've really only got one quality win. That's the LSU win. Then they've beaten everybody they're supposed to beat. I guess I'll give them the road win at Syracuse.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Okay.
Some people would consider the Syracuse win a big win, but
50-50, either. But Clemson, they fought hard, but they fell a little short.
I mean, we both know that once the air was let out of Syracuse, it was a whole new ball game.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. They were competitive in their three. To me, the teams that they needed to beat. They were competitive, but they just fell a little bit short. Wake Forest 31-21 they lost. NC State they lost 19-17. Clemson 34-28. So they were competitive in all these, but then they won all the rest of their games that they should have. This is a rivalry game, and they beat the living crap out of Miami in that rivalry game down in South Florida. This one's at home. I don't have a line yet on this game. But I think the game in of itself is going to be great. It's just sad to see that Florida's 6-5 and Florida State's 8-3. From where.
Yeah, man, I really don't. Just thinking about the line, I would say that Florida State's going to be favored by 3 or 4 points at home. But it could be as high as 7. But I don't know. The Florida thing is just such a question mark. I mean, you got to look at Florida's ceiling, and their ceiling is definitely good enough to go to Tallahassee and win.
I completely agree. But at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked if Florida State beats them as well.
Absolutely. It's one of those, and I love those kind of games.
Same. I mean, so I'll watch this game. It just didn't, it just doesn't have the nosh that it used to have in the 90s for sure. And also even – for even not even having that, but it's neither team is. Florida State might be ranked. Let me look. I think they're ranked. They are. Florida State is. They're 19th in the country.
Okay.
So Florida State's ranked. Florida is not, and it just doesn't have any bearing really going forward on any. I don't see either of them making a major bowl game, let alone the playoff. So that one's out.
Yep.
The Tar Heel State rivalry game, North Carolina State at North Carolina. This one gets an honorable mention. It might have been, but North Carolina really, dropped the ball yesterday, losing to Georgia Tech.
You know what, Sean? I did not realize that happened. I checked out most of the scores. That's one that I missed. Wow. I did see that it was a close game at one point.
They jumped out to a 17-0 lead and then let Georgia Tech storm back, and Georgia Tech beat them. 21-17, is that right?
Wow.
Yeah, 21-17 was the final last night.
All right, beware Georgia. Here comes the Rambling Wreck.
And And that was for North Carolina. That was a home game too. That wasn't down at Bobby Dodd or even the Mercedes Benz. That was in Chapel Hill. You're up 17-0, and then I wish I had more monitors because when they got up 17-0, I sort of left that game thinking, well, okay, and also the Utah and Oregon game and USC UCLA games were going on. At the end of the night when they did the rundown, I was absolutely shocked that Georgia Tech had come back, didn't let them score again after I think the second quarter, and that was stunning to me. So and then NC State, they've got NC State is ranked. They're barely ranked. I think I think they're holding on for dear life. I think they'll fall out of the next CFP rankings because they lost to Louisville 25-10. So this game, has lost a lot of panache. So it's an honorable mention, but it's not part of the five. Another one, just so many rivalry. It is rivalry weekend, so we got more than we normally would have. But Baylor at Texas. Normally, this would be a bigger game. Baylor and Texas are usually better than they are. Baylor fought hard. They took TCU to the wire, but they suffered. I think was that their fifth loss this year? I think it's Baylor's fifth loss. Yeah. And if you recall, Baylor they were talking about Baylor as potentially the Big 12 champion.
Yeah, it was kind of arguable between Baylor and, believe it or not, Oklahoma.
Yeah. And neither of them, bad. Very, very bad. So that one's out. And then last, but not least, for honorable mention that just missed, Iron Bowl, Auburn at Alabama.
Yep.
Did not make the five. I'll watch the game certainly, but it doesn't make the top five this year. Obviously, Auburn is. I believe Auburn's below 500, or right at 5.
Or they might be 5-5. No. 5-6.
5 or 5
maybe 6-5. I don't know. They won yesterday. Let me tell you something though. Watching Alabama, especially in the last month, if this game was in Auburn, I believe I'd pick Auburn. Because Alabama right now is capable of losing to any capable team.
Yeah, they're certainly not their usual selves.
I think Tuscaloosa will be enough. But
I think so. And it being a rivalry game, I think Alabama will win the game, but I think it'll be hard fought down to the wire. I'm still going to watch it. It's just with Auburn being below 500, which they are, they're 5-6. They need this win to get to bowl eligibility and get themselves back to Birmingham for their favorite bowl game. But Alabama still has a snowball's chance to get to the CFP if they win this and like 5 other things happen. We'll watch it, but it just gets the honorable mention this year versus years in the past where both were in the top 10, and had bigger things on the horizon. Right now, if Alabama wins and they don't get the things that they need to, they're likely they'll go to a New Year's Six. Not the playoff New Year's Six bowl, but just a regular, a Sugar Bowl maybe or a Orange Bowl.
I'm seeing projections of an Orange Bowl match up with Clemson possibly if Clemson don't get back in this thing.
Right. So, and then Auburn, if they win, they get the Birmingham Bowl or the Camellia Bowl, or they don't win, they don't go bowling, and the coaching search continues.
Right.
So it just missed. We'll certainly watch it. It's the Iron Bowl. It's a great game, but just the overarching implications just aren't there this year, and it'll get back. It always does.
Yep.
But this is just one of those off years. So with that said, that is all of our honorable mentions and ones we had to discard.
Tulane at Cincinnati, Friday, noon Eastern on ABC.
A couple of top 25 teams. And funny you mentioned Navy and UCF. We're going back to the American Athletic Conference, AAC. I knew you love AAC football just like I do.
Absolutely.
The number 21, 9-2 Tulane Green Wave are at the number 25, 9-2 Cincinnati Bearcats. Both are 6-1 in the conference. Both are 9-2 overall, and this one is going to be at Venerable Nippert Stadium, one of the oldest stadiums still in existence in college football.
Now, see, you were talking about putting this list together back in June or July, and you were talking about games that you thought would be there. There ain't no way you thought about this game being there.
No, this is a brand. Yeah, you spotted new addition, and this is certainly one of those. This was
the inverse. Yes.
Yeah, I had to write this one in this week because it was not there. That's why I leave some. I think I sent you a picture of the notebook. I always leave some open lines for additions, and this one was certainly just that. Though I do think that despite whoever wins this game this week, I think I'm going to have to look at the tiebreakers. So you got UCF and Houston that are 5-2. We'll have to look at the tiebreakers. We could see this game again, depending on how things shake out for Central Florida and Houston. I think Cincinnati probably wins this game because it's at home, but it'll be close for sure. But let's see. UCF has the tiebreaker on Tulane as well as Cincinnati. So they have wins over both of those programs. Let's see. Houston has no tiebreaker on Tulane. They do not play Cincinnati. Okay. And UCF don't play them. So Central Florida, depending on who loses this game, will likely play the winner in the AAC Conference Championship game, assuming they win their game against South Florida, the directional Florida rivalry. But yeah, Cincinnati, Tulane, whoever wins this guarantees a spot in the AAC Conference Championship game. It's contrasting styles. Tulane loves to score. They can put points up in bunches. Whereas Cincinnati, very typical with Luke Fickell, they play a stingy style of defense. They haven't given up very many points this year in the conference. So this one is a good contrasting styles fight. Tulane from the warm weather, Cincinnati from the cold weather, which it is up in Cincinnati. This game is going to be on Friday. So that's another reminder for our listeners. You know, we have a number of games on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving this year, of course, as always. Well, Friday, noon Eastern on ABC is Tulane at Cincinnati. That the winner of this is likely going to be the highest ranked group of 5 team, which means, UCF is up there as well. But
they've actually, I've seen some bowl projections today where they've got UCF as the.
UCF is sitting at 8-3. If Tulane wins this game, they're 10-2, and then they go on to win, say, the conference title, they'd be 11-2.
Somebody had Tennessee and UCF projected to play in the Peach Bowl. Oh, wait. I don't remember which bowl.
Say Tennessee, I don't think is going to be in that bowl anymore.
No, sorry. So the Peach Bowl is a playoff game. Whatever the lower tier bowl is, that's still a New Year's Six.
Oh, I don't think Tennessee's making a New Year's Six anymore. Do you?
I Possibly. Possibly. I think it would help if Hooker wouldn't have gone down.
I see them as a whatever they're calling the Outback Bowl now.
Oh, okay.
I think Alabama takes that New Year's Six slot because even though Tennessee beat them, without having Hendon Hooker, who's done for the year with the ACL, and we wish him a speedy recovery, you're not going to want to see that. You know, you don't want a hobbled team playing another decent team. You'd want both teams playing it. Now, certainly, Bryce Young could declare for the draft and sit out. So
right.
But forward to that next week as we march into a conference title. We can start speculating then.
Welcome to Smacking Off, the podcast. Right, we're here at Commonwealth Stadium, representing for the Kentucky Wildcats, right against the Georgia Bulldogs. Right, and I'm live here, and there's fun and excitement going on. You can see that, right? And they're playing a song. This is Smacking Off, the podcast.
Support Smacking Off the podcast by patronizing our affiliates' products. Go to our website at smackology.42web.io and click the affiliates link. There you will find a host of great deals to stretch your dollar to its fullest.
Great products like Showtime, Shark Vacuums, Dish Network, Vidgo, Hulu, NFL Plus, and GameStop. The list goes on. Remember, smackology.42web.io and remember to click the affiliates link for these products and many more.
South Carolina at Clemson, Saturday, noon Eastern on ABC.
This is another add-on, Doug. Another add-on because of the events that transpired last night. The 7-4 and fresh off beating the living tar out of Tennessee. Well, the South Carolina Gamecocks get another test of an orange-clad team as they travel to Clemson next weekend and take on the number 9 ranked 10-1 Clemson Tigers.
Interesting game, and if I forget his name, the guy that transferred from Oklahoma,
Spencer Rattler.
If Spencer has a game like he had yesterday, this is going to be a hell of a game.
That's what I'm saying. And if DJ doesn't have a great game, how quickly does Dabo go to the bullpen and bring Cade Klubnik in for Clemson?
We see that good teams bring out the best in South Carolina, or what's perceived to be elite teams.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. Florida not very good this year. South Carolina rolls over and gets pummeled.
Right.
They're playing Tennessee, who's still had an outside shot at going to the playoff. They just absolutely took him to the woodshed. 63 points, my goodness. And now Clemson's sort of got an outside shot still at going to the college football playoff. They lose this game. I don't think so. I think they're done. I mean, what Gamecock team is going to show up? It's incredible. Looking at their really the only big name team where they got really, pummeled was the Georgia game, early in the year. Most of the other ones that were not wins were all competitive, other than the Florida loss, which that one I think that's one of those ones. It's the outlier. They didn't show up. But prior to the Florida, the only other loss was a competitive loss to Missouri, 23-10. They just couldn't get anything going on offense that game. And then they had a competitive loss to Arkansas, in Fayetteville earlier in the year. But it was competitive. The only outliers, obviously Georgia. Georgia's the number 1 team in the country. But the Florida one doesn't make any bit of sense. So I think they're going to come, come and bring it, and Clemson better be ready. The thing Clemson has thankfully on their side is the game is in Clemson. It's in Death Valley at Memorial Stadium. This game is Saturday on ABC at Clemson can't get away from these noon kickoffs.
Nope.
For it seems like all their home games are noon Eastern, but this is a Saturday noon Eastern on ABC. Big ramifications in this one. You got Dabo, who's established there at Clemson, though that supposedly could be some rumors of Auburn's interest in him, versus the new up and coming Shane Beamer at South Carolina. Are we headed back to a period of where these games between Clemson and South Carolina are competitive again versus what they have been of recent is usually.
It certainly appears that that's where we're headed.
I hope so.
Maybe not this year. Maybe Clemson just goes in and takes care of business, and South Carolina's a little flat. I don't know. We'll see. But it definitely looks like Beamer has South Carolina headed in a good direction.
Yeah. So our previous game, the Tulane Cincinnati game. Tulane leads that series, by the way, 11-7, no ties in that series. This one, let me take a quick gander at. I believe Clemson leads it in a healthy amount, but let's just make sure. Clemson leads South Carolina by 30 games. Wow. 72 wins, 42 losses, and 4 ties. Clemson is on a 7-game win streak in this series. South Carolina's last victory was in 2013 in Columbia. Their last win in Clemson was 2012.
And that was the head ball coach.
Yes. Yep. Dabo was trying to get his program going, and the head ball coach was doing his thing at South Carolina. Since he's left, Dabo's got that program humming along. It's been all Clemson every year since. The only close loss for South Carolina was in 2015, 37-32. The rest of them, though, have all been many possessions by Clemson over South Carolina. But with last night's big win and South Carolina looking good, Clemson not looking like their usual selves, we'll just say, even though they are 10-1. Other than the Notre Dame, absolutely, steamrolled them. But there were a couple other games, the North Carolina State game, the Wake Forest game, that coin flip here, coin flip there, ball bounces another way. Those could have been losses as well. So
yeah, I agree.
I'm really excited for this game. I think it's going to be a good one.
Oregon at Oregon State, Saturday, 3:30 Eastern on ABC.
The game formerly known as the Civil War, but it's out in the Pac-12 North. The Oregon Ducks are at the Oregon State Beavers. Oregon is 9-2. Oregon State is 8-3. I think this is going to be a great game. You got two great coaches there, Dan Lanning with Oregon and Jonathan Smith with Oregon State. Both have had big wins this year, but also both have had disappointing losses.
I missed what you said. Where's this game at?
It should be in Corvallis at Oregon State. Let me double check that just to be sure from when I wrote this down in August, because this one was originally on the list. I did think this would be a game that had importance. So, yes. So this Oregon is at Oregon State, and it is Saturday at 3:30 Eastern time on ABC. So after the Clemson game gets done, this is the next game on ABC. So you don't even have to change the channel for this one. And
man, I kind of like Oregon State here at home.
I think this is a very much a trap game for Oregon, who had a dogfight last night with Utah, which they survived 20-10 20-17, if memory serves.
Yeah.
20-17 was the final score. That one. Oregon State on Oregon State's last game was a hammering of Arizona State, 31-7 down in Tempe. So they should be fairly. I know it was on the road, but they had the backups in for the majority of the second half because Arizona State is terrible.
Yep.
And they're at home, and they are, infinitely more difficult to beat in Corvallis than when they're on the road, or definitely if the game was in Eugene. So I think Oregon, the Ducks have to really have some trepidation about this game. The positive, we did see, we saw Bo Nix last night.
Yep.
And I didn't read anything of him coming out of that game with any worse wear or tear. So he should be available next Saturday, which to me will be the difference in this game. Assuming he's like I said, I didn't read any reports saying he got injured worse or more banged up, but if he plays at least to what he did last night, or even to some of the previous games this season, I think Oregon will escape Corvallis with a win, which is certainly important because that would put them, in the Pac-12 title game.
So tell me this: if Oregon State wins this game, then what does that do?
I think that puts Washington, that puts the Huskies, assuming that Washington has to beat Washington State in the Apple Cup, and that one didn't make our list because, frankly, I thought Washington State was going to be terrible this year. They're 7-4, so not terrible. They're actually, they're way better than I thought they would be. But Washington, should they beat Washington State, and if Oregon loses, then Washington would play USC in the Pac-12 title game, which SC is already locked in.
We certainly know that Bruce Martinez is pulling for the Beavers here.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. He'd love to see Washington get a shot at USC. There,
I have a strange feeling. I'm going to go against you on this one. I have a strange feeling Oregon State wins this game at home.
They very well could. They very well could. I think it's an extraordinarily close game. I'm going to go with the team with the better quarterback. I'm going to take Oregon and Bo Nix, but I could certainly be wrong, and I can see Oregon State winning this game. Like I said, I've been to Corvallis. It's a tough place to play. Luckily, it's a day game per se, but I don't know the weather just yet. It could be overcast, dark, rainy, which is, we've seen that in the past, or we could get a beautiful, sunny, spectacular day. You don't quite know. The series, Oregon leads the series 67 wins, 48 losses, and 10 ties as we get to next week. They're on a one-game win streak. Oregon is. And it's going to be a great game to determine who plays. It helps determine who plays USC in the Pac-12 title game in Vegas the following week. Right. If Oregon wins, they're going. It's Oregon and USC, kind of a game that all of us wanted to see. From the get-go, from basically the beginning of the season when we started looking at things, and they didn't play this year in the regular season.
One more win on Oregon State's record, and maybe this game is for the championship spot. Yeah.
Or Oregon State, they were, somewhat frustrating in that, they came out of the gun, beat Boise State, Fresno, Montana State. And by the way, Montana State in the FCS and game day was just there this past weekend. Montana State's a pretty damn good team. by the way.
Yep.
Albeit for FCS. I think they're one of the higher seeds in the FCS playoffs, which that bracket has been set. Isn't that crazy? FCS been doing playoffs for years, and they can figure it out, and FBS we're still struggling with it. But then they lost that heartbreaker to USC 17-14, which to me, I think they lost that game twice. They lost that game at home by a field goal. And then the next week they go to Utah and just, they weren't there mentally and got pounded 42-16.
They let one loss cost them another loss.
Exactly. Yes. And then they finally, Jonathan Smith, to his credit, is a good head coach. They beat Stanford by a point the following week on the road. And that started to get them out of their funk. And they beat Washington State the next week. Then they pounded Colorado. But then they lose another heartbreaker. They lost by 3 yet again, Washington. But this time there wasn't a bad hangover from it. They pounded Cal. They pounded Arizona State. So you're right. I mean, had they won the Washington game or the USC game, this game would have a heck of a lot more on the line, other than it just being a rivalry game. But that in of itself, and you and I knowing the history of this game, how there's been a lot of upsets in it in years where the favorite's supposed to win and move on. I think, there have been a number of years where Oregon was supposed to go on to, back in the BCS days, a chance at the national title, and Oregon State would clip them, or Washington, or sometimes even Stanford. But I think this could be another case, like you said. If Oregon plays their best game and they're at home, they could very well ruin Oregon's chances at a New Year's Six bowl game, or a trip to Vegas for the conference title.
Hi, this is Kyle Golick, and I'm standing in the middle of SEC country. We're over here, Big Ten country here. Where do I stand? SEC, Big Ten, SEC, Big Ten. You're listening to the Smacking Off the Podcast.
Listen to Smacking Off the Podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Also check us out on the Podbean app, Player FM and Podchaser.
Notre Dame at Southern Cal Saturday, 7:30 Eastern on ABC.
Battle of top 15 programs now. And this game will be on Saturday at 7:30 Eastern time on ABC. So we're staying on ABC a lot with my games this week. That usually doesn't shake out. But the game is the greatest intersectional rivalry in college football. You have the 8-3 and 13th ranked Fighting Irish of Notre Dame heading to the number 5 ranked 10-1 USC Trojans.
Yep, looking forward to this one.
Yeah, 7:30 Eastern, ABC in the old Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. Play on natural grass. Seats about 80,000. Depending on if they take the tarp off the end zone, it could get bigger. And I think they will this week. I think ticket demand for this game is very high, albeit it got close last night for USC, certainly against their crosstown rivals in the Battle of Los Angeles. They escaped the Rose Bowl 48-45 over Chip Kelly's Bruins. So they dragged the victory bell back to USC's campus. USC has been they've won their games. They're 10-1. They're going to the Pac-12 title game. This is really this Notre Dame being their true non-conference test this year. As you know, Pac-12 plays 9 conference games. 8-1. Their lone defeat was 1 point at Salt Lake City to Utah. But their other two non-conference games, they played Rice to start the year, and a few weeks later they played Fresno State, and they blew out both of them. So this is their last non-conference game of the year, which is also their last regular season game of the year. I think this game is gonna, it's gonna tell the tale of both of these teams, of what they are and what they are not. Notre Dame, on the other hand, started the year off with Ohio State in the horseshoe. They lose that game, and I think that game cost them the following week at Marshall, particularly after their starting quarterback, Buckner, was injured in the Marshall game, and Pine was forced into emergency service. And unfortunately, he committed a couple of turnovers in that game, and they lose 26-21. Notre Dame starts the season 0-2, and of course, they're completely written off, which they should be for losing to Marshall.
Right.
And they have, both of these programs have a first-year head coach at their program, albeit Lincoln Riley's coming from Oklahoma and in 4 college football playoff appearances, versus Marcus Freeman. This is his first time being a head coach anywhere. So growing pains for certain for Coach Freeman and his staff. But then they righted the ship by, winning some games that, frankly, people didn't think they were going to win. They went to North Carolina and took care of North Carolina, who Carolina will be playing in the ACC championship game against Clemson. And they have arguably a Heisman Trophy contender at quarterback, Drake May. That was a big win for Notre Dame. They beat Syracuse and basically on the road and derailed their season. But then they had a one step forward, 2 steps back. They had a curious, 16-14 sluggish loss at home to Stanford, which simply all they had to do was kick a field goal at the end of the first half, and they win that game 18-16. But nevertheless, a sleepwalking kind of performance, which we thought they had cured themselves of, and then you go, they got Clemson coming to town, and then they played their best game of the season, and beat Clemson 30-15. Heavy dose of physicality with the offensive line and the tight ends and the running backs in that game. But then the following week, it's been a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde Notre Dame team. They did beat Navy the following week, but being up 35-13 at halftime, Navy comes back and it's 35-32 for a final score.
Yep.
So then this week, senior day, home day, and the weather is perfect for a Notre Dame senior day, home day. It's snowing. It's chilly. They absolutely pounded Boston College 44-0. So I'm interested to see what Notre Dame shows up at Southern Cal. Southern Cal, I think we know what we're going to get. We're going to get explosive offense, great play from their quarterback, who also is a Heisman contender, Caleb Williams. And Jordan Addison at wide receiver. They did lose Dye, their explosive tailback, last week. He's out for the year. I think it was an ankle. But different, certainly 2 different styles in this one. You have a high-flying Lincoln Riley offense versus a methodical ground and pound Notre Dame offense. A very physical Notre Dame defense versus a very skill-based and athletic and quick USC defense. So this one, to me, it's got it all. And, of course, the rivalry. Notre Dame leads the series 48 wins, 36 losses, and 5 ties. They're on a 4-game winning streak. SC hasn't won this game since 2016. What else? And this game is certainly more important for SC because they're still in the college football playoff discussion, and they're really the last remaining. Speaking of 2016, that was the last year a Pac-12 team went to the college football playoff. So they are Pac-12's last remaining hope to potentially get there. And a win over Notre Dame would certainly boost that resume along with that win against UCLA. And then if they somehow could beat whoever they play in the Pac-12 championship game, that would also but this game's been played since 1926. It's one of those time-honored games, and it's good to see it getting back to relevancy.
Michigan at Ohio State, Saturday, noon Eastern on Fox.
Well, it is arguably annually the number one rivalry game in college football. It's certainly
the game they call the game, right?
It's the game they call the game, and it's habitually usually the most watched regular season game, at least it has been for the last couple of years. And that's, granted, you have two of the largest public institutions with some of the largest living alumni bodies involved in this one. And that's we're going to travel to Big Ten country. We have the two beasts of the Eastern Division in the Big Ten versus the laughableness of the West Division. No, you have the very, very seriousness of the Big Ten East. That is the number 3, 11-0 Michigan Wolverines traveling to the number 2, 11-0 Ohio State Buckeyes. It will be in Columbus, Ohio at the Venerable Horseshoe, which seats 102,000. Play on turf there, and we hope the weather is going to be good. And I think I have the 10-day here for Columbus. It is going to be next Saturday in Columbus. A high of 45. The wind appears to be benign. It could be a chance for some rain in the morning, maybe, that could linger. But all in all, things being said, right now the forecast for the game on Saturday should be pretty good. No severe wind, no crazy snow. So the weather really shouldn't be a factor in this one.
So tell me, Sean, before you jump into the game, do they play for a trophy, and what's it called?
This is the one. I don't believe they do.
Wow.
I don't think there's a trophy for this game.
That's crazy, ain't it?
It is. Now, Ohio State, when they win this game, each player gets a little pin of gold pants that they can put on their Letterman jacket. It goes back to, I think it was when Woody Hayes said that, they put their pants on one leg at a time like we do as a motivating speech to beat Michigan. And so there's that, which many years ago, you remember the incident that would now not be illegal. The players were selling their championship rings and things of that nature for tattoos and other items.
Right.
I believe some of those gold pants were sold as well as that. So I know that the Ohio State players, when they win, they get like little collector's pins that are gold pants. Michigan, I don't think maybe they get some stickers on their helmet, which Ohio State also does that. But no actual significant, trophy on the field that you can go run and grab. Though both of them do play other teams for certainly rivalry trophies. Michigan plays Minnesota for the Jug, Michigan State for Paul Bunyan. Ohio State plays Illinois for the big wooden turtle trophy, Illabuck. So, yeah, it's interesting that this one doesn't have one. Michigan leads the all-time series, 59 wins to 51 losses and 6 ties. They're on a one-game winning streak, though Ohio State has dominated this series since the turn of the century.
I believe Ohio State's going to have a chance to take the lead in this series in the next 20 years.
I think so, too.
It's definitely looking decent for Michigan at the moment, but I don't know. Ohio State has been.
So since 2000, in the year 2000, Michigan won. Since then, they've won. So they won in 2000, won in 2003. They won in 2011, and then they won in 2021. So 4 times since the year 2000. That's not a good track record for Big Blue.
No, not in a big rivalry.
Things continue to move forward. Now Harbaugh has certainly made, put an emphasis on this. You saw how much it meant last year. I'm certain it'll be the same this year. It'll be a hell of a fight. I don't have a line just yet on this game. I could certainly look it up. But on paper, I mean, they're very similar, including their wins in the Big Ten. They're similar scores with the teams they've played. Really, the only difference, Ohio State had at least one significant non-conference game, which of course is Notre Dame. Which if Notre Dame beats USC, bigger feather in their cap. Versus Michigan literally did not play a Power 5 team at all in their non-conference games. Sticking with UConn, Hawaii, and Colorado State. So, Michigan needs this game more than anything. Because if they lose this game, and particularly if they lose it by, I'd say, 10 points or more, they really lose, any sort of argument to getting into the college football playoff. Ohio State, assuming they don't get blown out, and if Notre Dame does win that game against SC, they still have an outside shot if it's a close enough. Certainly won't be good. In addition, whoever wins is going to play likely Iowa in the Big Ten title game, though it could be Purdue, but likely Iowa. So, yeah, everything is on the table in this game. From a national perspective, a conference perspective, a division perspective, and then just in and of itself, it is the game that these fan bases focus on, period. An example, look at last year. Ohio State loses that game. Then they don't get to, win the Big Ten. They won the Rose Bowl, and it was looked at as a very unsuccessful season, even though, the team they played, Utah, would have considered winning the Rose Bowl, a spectacular season.
Right.
So that just speaks to how important this game is. For both of these programs. It is the beginning and the end. It's everything is culminating on this game.
It's the alpha and the omega.
It really is for both these programs. The game started in 1897. First game between the two, which of course was a Michigan win. Michigan, one of the first universities to start playing football. Ohio State got started significantly later than Michigan, and their first win against Michigan was 20 years after their first meeting. That tells you how good Michigan was in that time period.
Absolutely, and a lot of their lead, I'm sure, comes from that era.
From that era, the 1890s till about the 1920s. Is when they did really.
What am I talking about? All of their lead comes from that era.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's and just about all of their rivalries that they've played for an extended period of time. Yeah, it comes from them being great in the 1880s through the 1920s.
Yeah, I'd like to see what the record is from 1930 on. I bet you Ohio State's got a significant lead.
It would be, if not tie. Yeah, I think Ohio State probably has the lead in this series if you were to, but that's not unfortunately how it works. But yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think if trends continue as they are, Ohio State will take over the lead.
Here's 6 things that you can do to help support this podcast. Like, share and comment on our videos. Buy our merchandise. Use our affiliate web links to buy great products and services from our affiliates. And tell others about our podcast.
You can now tag team our affiliate retail deals with Overstock, Walmart, and Best Buy.
Find our affiliate links at smackology.42web.io and click affiliates at the top of the page.